Okay, let's dive in. That feeling, of being absolutely shackled by debt, like you've got no extra time, zero extra resources.
Mhm.
For so many people, that's not just some abstract idea. It's the daily grind. It makes you feel completely stuck, like any kind of real financial progress, just
Yeah.
impossible. A cruel joke almost.
hmm That feeling of being really, truly constrained, it's powerful. And the sources we're looking at today, they really dig into that. They really highlight how common this is. Like nearly half of adults in the US, 47% I think it was, say money negatively affects their mental health.
Oh, nearly half.
Yeah. And it's not just perception. We're talking 77% of American households managing some kind of debt.
77%. That's huge. That's most people.
It is. And that link between the financial stress and mental well-being, it's just brutal. Anxiety, depression, it puts a massive strain on relationships.
Right. And what's worse, it sounds like it creates this horrible cycle, doesn't it? The
hmm
stress itself makes it way harder to make good money decisions.
Yeah. Exactly, which just reinforces the whole problem. One study mentioned something like 92% of people facing mental health issues reported having difficulty with financial decisions.
92%. It's a trap.
It absolutely is. And the sources, they acknowledge that head on, which I think is really interesting. They aren't just, throwing generic budget advice out there. They're laying out more of a roadmap, one that gets, this isn't just about the dollars and cents. It's deeply psychological, especially when you feel like you're starting from absolute zero. Zero extra cash, zero extra time.
Right. So that's our mission here in this deep dive. We're taking this specific set of source material, this guide really designed for you. If you're feeling that exact constraint and pulling out the most critical, actionable stuff, we want to show you what these experts are saying about making actual headway toward your goals, even when it feels completely, utterly out of reach. It seems to be about finding power in those, like, tiny, consistent steps, not waiting for some lottery win that's probably never coming.
Exactly. It's about understanding that real change is possible, even with severe limits. The research on habit formation they bring in is key here. Getting just 1% better each day. Tiny increments. It adds up to huge results over time. It's quite remarkable, actually.
Okay, so that brings us right to the core issue.
Yeah.
The psychology of feeling trapped, feeling shackled. When you're under that kind of pressure, that feeling, it doesn't just sit there, right?
Yeah.
It actively reinforces the habits that maybe got you into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And it just sucks away your motivation to even try changing things.
Precisely. And breaking that cycle, it really starts with understanding how habits actually work. The source material talks a lot about the habit loop.
Mhm.
It's pretty fundamental. You got a cue that triggers a routine, and the routine delivers some kind of reward.
Yeah.
Your brain, specifically this area called the basal ganglia, you can think of it like the brain's autopilot for stuff you do regularly. It loves this loop because it's efficient. And there's this chemical, dopamine, involved that makes the loop feel, well, satisfying.
Right. So, okay, let's make that real for finances. A cue might be feeling stressed when a bill arrives.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe just feeling bored.
And the routine could be mindless online shopping, scrolling through Amazon.
Definitely. Or maybe grabbing expensive takeout instead of cooking.
And the reward, maybe a temporary buzz from buying something new, or just avoiding the stress for a bit.
That's it. A distraction, a little hit of pleasure, escape. Understanding your specific loops, what triggers you, what you do, what you get from it, that's the critical first step. The sources hammer home.
Okay, so you identify the loop.
Yeah.
Then what? You start rewiring.
Yeah, that's the term they use, rewiring. And the guide offers some really practical steps. First, like you said, get specific about your cues.
Yeah.
What exactly triggers those unhelpful money behaviors? Is it stress, boredom, seeing ads on social media, walking past a certain shop? You gotta know.
Okay, know your triggers.
Then, disrupt the chain. If online impulse buys are the routine, make it harder for yourself. Unsubscribe from all those marketing emails like, be ruthless.
Oh, yeah. Delete saved credit card info from websites, from apps. That little bit of friction.
Exactly. That tiny hassle can be enough to make you pause and rethink.
Makes sense.
Then, crucially, you need to replace the negative routine. Find something else, something positive or even just neutral that still addresses the cue. So if stress is the cue that makes you want to shop when you feel that stress, try, say, a 5-minute breathing exercise instead. Or go for a quick walk.
So it tackles the stress, but without the financial damage.
Precisely. It gives your brain a different routine linked to that same cue.
And this bit seems really important, especially when you feel like you have no time or money. Keep it simple. Radically simple.
Yes, don't try to overhaul your entire financial life overnight. Don't build some complex new system. Start with something almost ridiculously easy, something you know you can actually do today.
Because those bad habits, they give you that short-term fix, right? But the long-term cost can be huge.
That's the trap, which is why the sources really stress keeping your long-term goals, your real why, front and center. Why are you doing this? That vision, that's the fuel you need to push through when it gets tough.
And it will get tough. Persistence is key, because setbacks, they're gonna happen, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're completely normal. You'll mess up. You'll have a bad day, maybe a bad week. It happens. The sources even mention change models where relapse is an expected stage. It's not failure.
Right, it's not a reason to just give up.
No, it's data. Frame it as data. What happened? What tripped you up? What can you learn from it to adjust your plan? That reframing is crucial.
Okay, so this connects to James Clear's stuff, right?
Yeah.
The 4 laws of behavior change. Sources bring that up.
They do. It's a really powerful framework here to build good financial habits. Make it obvious.
Like put a reminder on the fridge.
Right.
Stick a note on your monitor.
Yeah. Or set a phone alert. Make it attractive. Link doing the good habit, like saving $5, to something you actually enjoy, maybe listening to your favorite music or, yeah, this deep dive.
Okay, make it easy.
This is huge. Automate a tiny savings transfer. Or just review your bank app for literally 1 minute while your coffee brews. Make it almost effortless.
And make it satisfying.
Track your progress visually. Even just crossing days off a calendar where you stuck to your plan. Celebrate those tiny wins. Doesn't have to cost money, just acknowledge it.
That habit stacking idea you mentioned, reviewing the app while the coffee brews, that seems like gold when time is so tight.
It really is. Link that new tiny financial thing, check balance. Delete marketing emails to something you already do without thinking. Brushing teeth, waiting for the microwave.
Right, because it leverages routines you already have. It doesn't feel like adding this huge new task to your already overwhelming day.
Exactly. It minimizes that feeling of, I just don't have time for this. It fights the overwhelm.
Okay, so we've got the mindset, the tiny habits.
Yeah.
But keeping motivated, sustaining that drive when you feel completely swamped, that's still a massive hurdle.
It absolutely is. And this loops right back to your why. What's the deep down personal reason you want this change? Is it providing security for your family? Is it the dream of owning a home someday? Is it just the sheer relief of not feeling crushed by debt anymore?
You have to get really clear on that.
Crystal clear, write it down, stick it somewhere you see it every day. The sources really push connecting those small, sometimes tedious daily actions, skipping the fancy coffee, saving that tiny bit, connect them directly to that big, powerful vision. That connection is the fuel.
And goals. Setting goals when you're drowning and you feel like you have literally nothing extra. A huge goal like save $10,000 just feels crushing, demotivating.
Totally. And the guide is really explicit here. Downscale your goals radically. Set goals you know, like absolutely know you can hit right now. Save $10 this month. Or even just track my spending for 3 days straight this week.
Well, that's small.
That's small. Because achieving that tiny self-defined win gives you an immediate psychological boost. It builds momentum. It proves to yourself you can do it. The SMART goal framework specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound still applies, just on a micro scale.
And celebrate those wins. Seriously, like you said, doesn't need to cost money. Just acknowledging the effort. Hey, I did it. Maybe a short break for something free you enjoy. Watching that progress tracker tick up.
That feeling of accomplishment is powerful. It reinforces the behavior. And again, embrace setbacks as data. What went wrong? What were the circumstances? Learn, adjust, keep moving. Don't beat yourself up.
Mindfulness comes up too, doesn't it, as a tool?
It does. The sources suggest even a few minutes can help you spot those stress or emotional spending triggers before you act. It helps calm that financial anxiety that fuels bad choices. And importantly, it helps you challenge those negative money stories we tell ourselves.
Like, I'll always be broke, or I'm just terrible with money.
Exactly. Mindfulness can help you quiet that noise and consciously rewrite your internal script with something more empowering. I'm learning. I'm making progress. Even just 1 to 5 minutes a day can make a difference.
And finally, getting support. It's not weakness, right? It's strength.
Absolutely. Learn from others, books, podcasts, reliable websites. Find an accountability buddy, maybe a friend who's also trying to improve their finances. And honestly, don't hesitate to seek professional help. Counselors, therapists. If the stress is overwhelming, getting help is a smart, strong move.
Okay, so that's the whole psychological piece, hugely important. But let's get brutally practical now. How do you actually make headway when you literally feel like there's no extra time and definitely no extra money?
Yeah, the sources get very pragmatic here. When things are that tight, the first focus isn't fancy budgeting optimization, it's damage control and awareness. The main goal initially is just understanding exactly where every single dollar is going, finding those sneaky money leaks.
And you fight the no time problem with those micro habits we talked about.
Right, that 5 to 15-minute financial check-in, it's not optional, it's essential. Quick scan of bank transactions on your phone app. Maybe use a super simple notebook or a basic free app. They mention things like Monify or Fudget. Just jot down spending for a week or two, see where it's going, check progress on that one tiny goal.
Builds awareness, gives you a little bit of control back without needing hours you don't have.
Exactly. And leverage that dead time. Waiting for the bus, on your lunch break, standing in line somewhere. Listen to a short financial podcast snippet, read one quick article about saving money, review your simple budget notes, use those little pockets of time.
Or that one small action idea. Commit to doing just one small financial thing each day or week. Find one tiny expense you could maybe cut. Make one quick call about a bill. Research one assistance program online for 5 minutes.
And stack it with existing habits. Review transactions while the kettle boils, delete marketing emails while waiting for the microwave. These tiny integrated tasks are way more likely to stick than trying to carve out a whole hour when you're exhausted. They fight avoidance and build that sense of agency bit by bit.
Okay, and actual budgeting methods. The sources say complex systems are just doomed to fail when you're overwhelmed.
Pretty much. They'll just add to the stress. So first, like we said, track spending simply for a week or two, get that baseline picture, identify the leaks.
Then pick a super simple method. They talk about the bare minimum or essentials first budget.
Yeah, that's often presented as the most realistic starting point when there's genuinely no extra money. List your absolute must-pays: rent, utilities, basic food, minimum debt payments. Total it up. Subtract that from your income. Whatever's left, if anything, is what you actually have to work with. It directly confronts that I have nothing feeling by showing you the hard numbers.
What about like a simplified 50-30-20?
That's another option, a modified version. Maybe for you it's more like 70% needs, 10% wants, if there's anything left for wants, 20% debt savings. The percentages aren't rigid, you adjust them to your reality. But the framework itself is simple to understand.
And pay yourself first, even if it's tiny.
Yes, even if it's just $5 or $10 a paycheck. After essentials are covered, automate that tiny amount into a separate savings account or towards an extra debt payment. It builds the habit. It reclaims some control. Even if the dollar amount feels insignificant at first, the habit is what matters.
Automation seems key for the time-scarce aspect. Automating bills to avoid fees.
Critical. And automating that tiny savings transfer makes it happen without you having to think about it or rely on willpower you might not have that day. But, and this is a big caution in the sources, if your cash flow is really tight or irregular, you have to monitor that automation carefully. Check it weekly, maybe.
To avoid overdraft fees, right?
Exactly. Overdrafts can kill you. You really need a small buffer in your account before you can fully trust automation for savings. Otherwise, stick to manual transfers for a bit.
So, bare minimum and pay yourself first, tiny amounts, seem like the go-to methods for starting under severe constraints.
They're highlighted for that simplicity and effectiveness, yeah.
Okay, let's talk debt. The big mountain. When you have no extra money, attacking it aggressively seems impossible.
It does. So the guide suggests shifting the initial focus. First priority, stop accumulating new debt. Second, try to minimize the cost of the debt you already have. And step one is just knowing your enemy. List out all your debts, who you owe, how much, the interest rate, the minimum payment. Get it all down on paper.
The sources mention avalanche versus snowball methods.
They do. Quick recap. Avalanche targets the highest interest rate debt first. Mathematically, this saves you the most money over time. Snowball targets the smallest balance first, regardless of interest rate.
And for someone feeling totally shackled.
The snowball often gets the nod psychologically. Paying off that smallest debt completely, even if it's just $100, gives you a quick, tangible win. That feeling of accomplishment can be incredibly motivating and keep you going when everything else feels bleak.
But if you literally have no extra resources, even for the snowball,
then the absolute baseline goal is making minimum payments on time, every time. That protects your credit score from further damage and stops late fees and penalty interest piling up. And if you can't even make the minimums on everything, the advice is clear. Contact your creditors before you miss a payment. Explain the situation. Ask about hardship options. They might work with you.
What about debt consolidation loans? They sound tempting.
They can be, but the guide urges caution. Watch out for high fees. And crucially, a loan doesn't fix the underlying habits that led to the debt. You could end up back in the same spot but with another loan. And they issue a really strong warning about many for-profit debt settlement companies. They can seriously trash your credit, and their promises often don't pan out.
Which is why nonprofit credit counseling keeps coming up.
Exactly. They're presented as a much safer, more effective alternative. We'll talk more specifics. But they're set up to help negotiate with creditors in a structured way, often through a debt management plan that's actually affordable and designed to help you succeed long term. Reaching out to them is a really important step if you're overwhelmed.
So the initial debt strategy is defensive. Protect your credit with minimums. Try to reduce interest if possible. And then, if you find even a tiny bit extra, use the snowball for those crucial motivation boosts.
That sums it up well.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. Those big, scary long-term goals. Home ownership, retirement, they just feel impossible from this starting point.
They really can feel that way, but the sources argue they are possible. It just takes patience and super consistent micro-actions over a long time.
Home ownership. That feels like the ultimate pipe dream for so many people struggling with debt and low income. What are the big hurdles?
The main ones are saving up that down payment, managing your debt-to-income ratio, basically. How much of your monthly income goes to debt payments, lenders like it under 40%, and, of course, your credit score.
Shaving a down payment from nothing.
How? Micro-saving again. Automate that $5 or $10 per paycheck into a dedicated down payment fund. Be ruthless about cutting expenses. Think cut back, not cut out. Use any found money, tax refunds, small bonuses, side hustle cash, put it straight towards that goal.
And the sources get into specific programs here, right?
Right.
Knowing they differ by country.
Yes, they detail some key ones. For Canada, the FHSA First Home Savings Account is a big one. Contributions are tax deductible, growth and withdrawals for a first home are tax-free. You can combine it with the Home Buyers Plan, HBP, borrowing from your RRSP.
RRSP is the Registered Retirement Savings Plan.
Right. You can borrow from that tax-free for a down payment up to $60 for a couple now, I believe. Plus, there are tax credits, GST, HST rebates, maybe programs for new builds. It's worth noting, though, many provincial or municipal down payment assistance programs are actually loans themselves, so they add to your debt initially, even if some become forgivable later.
Okay.
And for the U.S., FHA loans are huge. Low down payments, like 3.5%, even with less than perfect credit, maybe down to a 580 score. VA loans for veterans, often zero down payment required. USDA loans for eligible rural areas, also often zero down. There's the Good Neighbor Next Door program, discounts on HUD homes for teachers, firefighters, police, and the HCV homeownership program, letting people use housing vouchers towards mortgage payments sometimes.
But here's a warning they stress. What the bank says you can borrow, that pre-qualification number, that's the absolute max. It's not your budget.
Absolutely not. Aim for total housing costs, mortgage, taxes, insurance, utilities to be comfortably under 35% of your income. Otherwise, you risk becoming house poor, trading one kind of financial stress for another.
And they really recommend pre-purchase counseling.
Highly recommend it. Nonprofit agencies, often HUD approved in the U.S., they offer free or low-cost guidance. They can explain all these programs, help you understand the real costs, and figure out what's realistic for your specific situation. Invaluable.
Okay. Now, retirement savings. When you're just trying to survive week to week, saving for something decades away feels like a luxury you absolutely cannot afford.
It feels completely counterintuitive, doesn't it? But the sources argue that not starting, even with tiny amounts, is one of the most costly mistakes you can make long-term.
Because of compounding.
Exactly, the power of compounding. It's that snowball effect again, but for your savings. Starting small but early is incredibly powerful. Even just $20 a month, started early enough, can grow significantly over decades because your earnings start earning their own earnings. The sources emphasize that even people with low incomes have built substantial wealth this way, just through consistency over time.
What about the debt versus saving debate? Pay off high-interest debt first, right?
Generally, yes. High-interest debt is usually the priority, except for one huge thing. Getting the employer match in your workplace retirement plan. Your 401k in the U.S., Group RRSP in Canada.
That's the free money, right?
It's literally free money. The sources are emphatic about this. Passing up the full employer match to pay down debt faster is almost always a massive long-term mistake. Let's say your employer matches 50 cents for every dollar you put in, up to 6% of your salary. If you put in nothing, you leave all that free money on the table.
And that adds up.
Hugely. Contributing just enough to get that full match, that's like getting an immediate guaranteed 50% or 100% return on your money. No debt interest rate comes close to that. The sources estimate missing the match over a career could cost you well over $100,000 in lost growth, easily. That consistent free money plus compounding is dramatic over decades.
Wow. Okay, so match first, then high-interest debt. Got it.
Yeah.
Account types matter too for low income.
They do. In Canada, the TFSA tax-free savings account is generally better than an RRSP if your income is low. Growth and withdrawals are tax-free, and it doesn't mess with income-tested benefits. The RRSP tax deduction isn't worth much when you're in a low tax bracket anyway.
And in the U.S., Roth versus traditional.
Usually Roth 401k or Roth IRA is better for lower incomes. You pay tax on the money now while your tax rate is low. Then the growth and withdrawals in retirement are completely tax-free, which is great if you expect to be in a higher tax bracket later. Traditional accounts give you the tax break now, but withdrawals are taxed later. Just note, Roth IRAs have income limits, but Roth 401ks generally don't.
So secure the match, then pay yourself first applies again. Automate small retirement contributions.
Exactly. Consistency builds the habit and the balance over time. And always choose low-cost investments. Simple index funds, ETFs. Fees destroy your returns over the long haul. Keep costs low.
So the message on retirement, even when it feels impossible, is start something, even tiny. Get that match, no matter what. Don't let the impossible feeling cost you potentially hundreds of thousands later.
That's the core message. Not starting is the most expensive choice.
Okay, it can feel like a lonely battle, fighting all this. But the sources make it clear. You are not alone. There are allies, resources out there.
And nonprofit credit counseling is highlighted again as just a critical, very accessible resource, often free or very low cost. They offer confidential, completely non-judgmental reviews of your whole financial picture. They help with budgeting specifically for tight situations. And they can often set up a debt management plan, a DMP.
Explain the DMP again quickly.
Sure. The agency works directly with your creditors. They negotiate potentially lowering interest rates, maybe getting fees waived. Then you make one single manageable monthly payment to the agency, and they distribute it to your creditors according to the plan. Creditors often agree because they'd rather get paid something reliably than risk you defaulting entirely. It takes a huge amount of stress and shame off your shoulders.
How do you find a reputable one? Avoid the scams.
Good question. Look for accredited agencies. In Canada, check for members of Credit Counseling Canada, like the Credit Counseling Society, Credit Canada, or others like Consolidated Credit Canada, mymoneycoach.ca. In the U.S., look for members of the NFCC, National Foundation for Credit Counseling, or the FCAA, Financial Counseling Association of America. Also, HUD-approved housing counselors often do credit counseling too. An initial consultation is usually free. Just talking to someone can be incredibly empowering.
Government websites too, for unbiased info.
Definitely. To avoid predatory stuff. In Canada, the FCEC Financial Consumer Agency of Canada has great objective info, tools, your rights. Provincial consumer affairs offices too. In the U.S., USA.gov is a portal to general assistance, food, utilities, housing help. Finding help there can free up cash for minimum payments or that microsaving. IRS.gov has info if you owe taxes. Hutchit.gov for housing help, counselor lists, FHA info. These are reliable starting points.
And financial literacy programs. Building knowledge helps build confidence.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power and control. Many programs are accessible, often free, flexible formats. In Canada, mymoneycoach.ca has workshops. McGill University has a great free online personal finance course. In the U.S., many university extension programs offer free classes. NFCC agencies often run workshops too. And remember that microlearning. Snippets in your downtime. It all adds up.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive, it's really traced a path, hasn't it? From feeling completely trapped, utterly shackled, to actually seeing a way forward. It's clear from all this source material that getting to financial freedom, it's a marathon, definitely not a sprint.
Absolutely. It's built step by step. Consistent small actions. Understanding your own habits, your triggers. Keeping that powerful why in focus. Using the resources and allies available. And just embracing it as a learning process. Setbacks are normal. They're part of it, not the end of it.
And just wanting to change, seeking out information like you are right now by tuning into this, that's arguably the biggest, most important first step. These guides really show that you can reclaim your financial agency, bit by bit, small piece by small piece.
So maybe a final thought for you to consider building on all this. If even saving just $5 right now feels completely out of reach, impossible, Where could you find just one unused minute of time today? Just 1 minute to take the absolute smallest first step on this path. Maybe just looking at your bank balance or reviewing one single transaction from yesterday. What's that one tiny thing you could do right now?